Welcome to the QuickPro camera guide for the Sony a35. This is a great camera that will capture amazing images as well as HD video. We hope you'll enjoy learning more about it with this guide. This guide is meant to be a study tool to be used in connection with and not a replacement of your camera's owner's manual. You can watch it entirely in one sitting or by chapter. The functions and features of the A35 that we cover are designed to give you a solid working knowledge of your camera. Our goal is to not only explain how to adjust the settings on your camera, but also help you understand when and why you would be motivated to take creative control of your camera. It's really not possible to cover every configuration on your camera, but we will provide you with a very solid foundation to build your digital photography skills on. With this new information, you'll be able to improve your ability to capture great pictures in a variety of shooting settings. The A35 features Sony's impressive translucent mirror technology with full-time phase detection autofocus, a 16.2 megapixel image sensor, a 15-point autofocus system, creative controls and effects, smile shutter and face detection options, adjustable dynamic range optimizer, and many other great features and functions that we'll discuss in this guide. Let's get started. Your A35 has many sophisticated buttons and dials, and to take the best pictures with your camera, you'll want to be familiar with the functions of each of them. Let's begin with a brief overview of many of the camera's buttons and features. Many of the things we'll discuss in this chapter are discussed in greater detail later in this guide. First, there is the shutter release button and the power switch. To take a picture, simply rotate the switch to the on position, press and hold the shutter button halfway down for a moment, allow the camera to focus, and then press it all the way down to take the picture. This is the control dial. In many of the camera's shooting modes, you can make adjustments to shooting settings with the control dial. This is the dynamic range button. In certain shooting modes, you can use this button to make adjustments to the level of dynamic range optimization in your images. Here is the Finder LCD button. By default, your camera will always be in the live view screen mode, meaning the scene will be displayed on the LCD. To switch the screen mode from the LCD to the electronic viewfinder, you can press the Finder LCD button. Also note that when these eyepiece sensors are covered, like when the camera is brought close to the face, the view will automatically be switched from the LCD to the electronic viewfinder. This is the movie recording button. To record a movie, simply press the button. To end recording, simply press the button again. This button has three functions. First, it is the zoom out thumbnail button in playback mode. It also serves as the aperture button. In the manual shooting mode, pressing and holding this button while rotating the control dial will change the aperture setting. Finally, this is the exposure compensation button. In the camera's programmed auto, aperture priority, and shutter priority modes, you can press and hold this button while rotating the control dial to adjust the overall brightness of the image. If you place the exposure compensation cursor at the plus side of the scale, the image will be brighter. And if you place the cursor toward the minus side, the image will be darker. After you've taken the photo, you want to be sure to set the exposure compensation back to 0. This button has two functions. First, it is the zoom in button in the playback mode. It's also the auto exposure lock button. You can use this button when you're taking pictures into the sun or near a window to ensure that the subject will not be too dark or too bright. On this side of the camera, we'll find the menu button, which is used to access the camera's sophisticated menu system, and the mode dial. By rotating the mode dial, you can tell the camera what exposure settings to use. When you choose any of the modes in this section of the dial, the camera will do all the work for you, and all you need to do is point and shoot. These modes include the Auto Plus, Auto, Flash Off, Scene Picture Effect, Sweep Shooting, and Telezoom Continuous Advance. This section of the mode dial has the manual modes. When you use the manual modes, you'll choose many of the camera's settings. These modes are more advanced, but with a little practice, you can produce amazing results. These modes include Program Auto, Aperture Priority, Shutter Priority, and Manual. Next, you'll find the Flash button. Pressing this button will make the camera's built-in flash pop up in the manual modes. The flash will pop up and fire automatically in many of the camera's automatic and scene modes. Just above the camera's flash, you'll see the accessory shoe, which you can use to attach optional flash units and other accessories to the camera. Also on this side of the camera, there are the focus mode switches on the lens and camera body. Both of these switches must be set to the AF position for the camera to use autofocus. One of the biggest benefits of owning an A35 is the ability to use a variety of different lenses. To mount or install a lens, make sure that the camera is switched to off and hold the camera in one hand and the lens in the other like this. Align the lens's index with the camera's index and then turn the lens till it clicks into place. When you want to dismount a lens, press the lens release button while holding the camera with the same hand. With the other hand, rotate the lens until it uncouples. Take great care not to scratch the lens by allowing it to make contact with anything. When you need to clean your lens, it's a good idea to use a lens cloth. Other fabrics can dull or scratch your lens. Avoid changing lenses in windy or dusty conditions, and this will help the image sensor stay clean and free of dust. On this side of the camera, you'll find a terminal cover, which will allow you to connect the camera to other devices using a USB or HDMI cable. Here you can connect a remote control, and this terminal will allow you to use an external microphone for movie recording. Now let's take a look at the bottom of the camera, where we'll find the tripod socket as well as the battery and memory card slot cover. Your Sony A35 can use SD memory cards as well as Memory Stick Pro Duo memory cards. When you're inserting an SD memory card, you'll want to make sure that the manufacturer's logo is facing the back of the camera. For Memory Stick Pro Duo cards, the manufacturer's logo will face the front of the camera. Simply insert the card until it clicks into place and close the card slot cover. Before you start taking pictures with a new memory card, it's a good idea to format it. Also, keep in mind that your camera will operate faster if you periodically reformat your memory card rather than simply deleting images from it to free up space for more picture taking. Make sure that you don't format your card unless you have already copied the images that you want to save to your computer. Formatting your memory card will erase all the images. To format a memory card, press the menu button. Then use the control button to scroll to the memory card tool menu. The first menu item is Format. Press the center control button, also the AF button, to select it. The camera will prompt you with a warning. Select Enter and the memory card will be formatted. Now let's take a look at the back of the camera. The most prominent feature is the 3-inch LCD screen. This screen serves several purposes. First, it provides you with a full-time live view of the scene. Next, it displays the images that have been taken in the playback mode. Using the camera's control buttons, you can scroll through the images on the memory card. The LCD also provides fast and easy access to the camera's menu settings and all of the shooting settings. Directly above the LCD is the electronic viewfinder, which allows you to frame your images. Before you start taking pictures, you'll want to focus the electronic viewfinder. To do this, use the diopter adjustment dial located to the right of the eye cup. Rotate the dial until the automatic focus points in the viewfinder are in sharp focus. At the bottom of the viewfinder display, you can see the shutter speed, aperture, and the exposure scale. At the bottom right corner of the viewfinder, you'll see the steady shot scale. You'll also see the focus confirmation light appear when an image is in sharp focus. Over the scene, you will see the camera's focus points. When the shutter is pressed halfway to focus, the areas where the focus points turn green will be in focus. This is the function button. When this button is pressed in any of the shooting modes, quick access is given to many important shooting settings and functions. These are the control buttons, which are used to navigate the different settings and options on the LCD. Each section also has its own function. The top of the control button is used to control which information is displayed on the LCD and in the viewfinder. Each time it is pressed, a different set of information will appear on the LCD and the electronic viewfinder. The left side of the control button is used to set the drive mode. The drive modes determine how many times the shutter releases when you press the shutter button. The A35 has single-shot advanced, continuous high and low speed, a 10-second and 2-second self-timer, and bracketing options that are available in the camera's P, A, S, and M shooting modes. The single and continuous drive modes are set automatically in the automatic and scene modes. You have full control of the drive modes in the P, A, S, and M modes. In single shot mode, one picture will be taken when you press the shutter button completely. By selecting the continuous shooting mode, the camera will shoot up to 5.5 frames per second. The camera will shoot continuously while you hold down the shutter button completely. The next drive mode options are the 10-second and 2-second self-timer options. The self-timer options are great for when you'd like to include yourself in the photo or reduce camera shake at very low shutter speeds. The bottom of the control button provides access to the camera's ISO settings in the P, A, S, and M modes. The right side of the control button provides access to the camera's white balance settings, also available only in the P, A, S, and M modes. The center control button has two purposes. First, it serves as the Enter button to confirm selections in the menu system and other shooting settings. Second, it is the AF button, which allows you to lock focus without pressing the shutter button halfway down prior to taking the picture. This is the Playback button, which allows you to view the images and movies that have been recorded on the camera's memory card. This is the Delete button, which is used to delete images and movies from the memory card. Let's take a look at the information and settings that can be accessed on the LCD screen when you're taking pictures. Note that the options will vary depending on the shooting mode that is selected, and we'll be showing the options that are available in the program Auto mode. Many of these settings will be discussed in more detail later in the guide. To enter the recording information screen, simply press the Function button. The first setting is Drive mode. To change this setting, you can simply rotate the control dial. To see the options for a setting, press the Center Control or AF button. You can use the top, bottom, and sides of the control button to navigate through the options. Press the Center Control button to select an option. To re-enter the function settings, we'll press the Function button again. Next, we'll see the Flash mode options. These are the Autofocus mode and Autofocus area settings. The next two options are Face Detection and Smile Shutter. Let's discuss these settings now. When activated, the Face Detection option will automatically find and focus on faces in the scene. The next setting, Smile Shutter, can detect a smiling face and take the picture all without you even pressing the shutter button. To use Smile Shutter, simply select On and use the sides of the control button to select the level of smile you'd like. Then press the Center Control button to confirm and exit the screen. To view the options for the settings on the right side of the screen, press the right side of the control button. The first option is the ISO settings, followed by the metering mode and flash compensation. Next is the white balance setting, DRO Auto HDR, and Creative Style. Your A35 can record image files in two different file types, RAW and JPEG. Both file types have benefits and drawbacks to consider. Let's talk a little about these two image file types. There are several important things to know about RAW files. First, they are not actually image files. They are actually the raw data saved to the memory card directly from the image sensor. Next, RAW files are uncompressed, meaning that the file sizes are considerably larger than those of compressed files. RAW files have a much broader range of tones. Shadow and highlight areas have much more detail than JPEG files. Also, you can make extensive edits to RAW files without losing data or image quality. And finally, RAW files appear flatter with less color and contrast and must be processed on the computer before they're printed. JPEG files, however, are very different from RAW files. JPEG files are a standard image file format that can be read by any image software. They are compressed, which means that not all of the image data is actually saved. Because they are compressed, JPEGs are much smaller in file size. JPEGs have a more narrow range of shadows and highlights and will lose some image data each time they're edited. Finally, JPEG files are processed by your camera and are able to be printed directly from the memory card. Because JPEG images require less time when editing on the computer, I use a high-quality JPEG setting for everyday picture taking and snapshots. If I know ahead of time that I'm going to be extensively editing my images, I will choose a RAW plus JPEG format. Let's take a look at how to choose the image size and the quality settings on the A35. First, we'll press the menu button and make sure that we're in the first recording menu, indicated by a camera icon with the number 1 highlighted. The top option, image size, is where you can choose the number of megapixels you'd like the camera to use when recording images. The first option, large, will use all 16 megapixels. The second option, medium, will use 8.4 megapixels, and the last option, small, will record the images using 4 megapixels. Unless I know that I will be using the images for email or posting online, I like to keep the camera set to the large 16 megapixel setting. Let's also take a look at the image quality options. There are 4 different options. First, there is RAW. With this setting, the camera will record one RAW file. The next option, RAW and JPEG, will record a RAW image file in addition to a JPEG file. There are also 2 JPEG options, Fine and Standard. The difference between the 2 JPEG options is the level of compression. The Fine option will have the least amount of compression and produce a higher quality image. The Standard option will have more compression, slightly lower quality, and smaller file sizes. Now that we've discussed image quality and file types, let's take a look at how to archive and back up these files for future use and safekeeping. It's important to always have your files saved in at least 2 different locations. There are many ways you can back up your files, and we'll discuss a few of them here, including CDs and DVDs, external and redundant hard drive systems, and online backup services. Regardless of which methods of backup you choose, you'll want to have a regular system for backing up your files. It's a good idea to create backups at the same time as you download the files from the camera's memory card for post-processing. Remember to create backups in 2 different locations in addition to your regular working hard drive. You'll also want to create backups of your processed images at set times each day, week, or month, depending on how frequently you're updating or adding to the files on your computer. The most affordable way to create a backup of your files is to burn them to CDs or DVDs. It's always a good idea to make multiple copies of each CD or DVD, as well as have at least one additional backup method. There are a few things to know about using CDs or DVDs to archive your images. Although the topic is debatable, our research found that many low-quality writable CDs or DVDs have an average lifespan of about 15 years when properly stored or cared for. If you choose to use these discs, you'll want to make sure that you not only have multiple backups of each disc, but you'll also want to periodically check the discs for signs of deterioration or discoloration. There are several companies that use gold and silver in the manufacture of their discs to ensure the archival quality. These discs are more costly than their lower quality counterparts, but they will normally have a lifespan of anywhere from 100 to 300 years. Be sure to look for the manufacturer's guarantee when shopping for silver or gold CDs or DVDs. Although these discs are more archival, you will still want to make sure that you have multiple copies of each disc. Regardless of which type of CD or DVD you use to back up your image files, you'll want to follow a few simple rules to help your discs last longer and as long as possible. First, always check the disc to verify that the contents have been successfully recorded before placing it in storage. Always handle the discs with care, using only the outer edges or center hole. Also, only use non-solvent permanent marker on the discs and only write on the inner hub area. Finally, you'll want to make sure that the discs are stored upright in jewel cases or paper sleeves in a cool, dry place. In addition to having a CD or DVD backup of your files, it's also a good idea to have the files saved using another method. External hard drives have become increasingly affordable and are available in a variety of capacities. When you use an external hard drive for backup purposes, you'll want to use a different hard drive for everyday working use to preserve the integrity of the backup drive. Another option for backing up your image files is a redundant hard drive or RAID system. These systems vary in size, speed, and cost, but can be an effective backup method. Let's discuss how these systems work. Inside this box, there are 2 hard drives. Some systems have 2 hard drives, others have 4 or more. Each of the hard drives can hold the exact same data. This way, when one of the drives fails, the other drive will still have all the data, and the bad drive can easily be replaced and repopulated with the data from the good drive. The system is connected to a computer using a standard USB cable or through a network. Some of these systems are very user-friendly and easy to install. Others may require the assistance of your local computer service technician. Again, it's a good idea to have your files saved using at least one additional method. One other way to keep a backup of your files is through an online backup service. These services vary not only in cost, but in the way that the backups are managed. Most of these services will require that you install a piece of software on your computer. At a set time each day, week, or month, the software will back up your files via the internet to a remote server. One of the advantages of using an online backup service is that in case of fire or other natural disaster, your files will be safe at an off-site location. Many photographers keep external hard drives, CDs, or DVDs in addition to using an online backup service. Your camera features a variety of shooting modes ranging from fully automatic to completely manual. This gives you a lot of flexibility and creative control over your photos. You can adjust the exposure, shutter speed, and depth of field settings on your camera to help capture the pictures you want. As you become more familiar with these concepts and principles, you'll improve your ability to capture the best pictures possible. There are two automatic modes on the A35, Auto and Auto Plus. With both of these modes, the camera will make adjustments for the brightness and color of the photo automatically. The Auto Plus mode is different from the Auto mode because it will quickly assess a scene and then switch to an appropriate scene mode to take the picture. The flash off mode functions in the same way as the automatic modes, except that the flash will not fire regardless of lighting conditions. Use this mode in places where using a flash is not appropriate. Now let's discuss the camera's scene modes and picture effects. To access these modes and effects, rotate the mode dial to the Scene Picture Effects setting. Now use the control button to scroll to the scene mode or picture effect you'd like. Note that if the scene mode options are not visible on the LCD, you can simply press the function button and then the center control button to view the scene mode and picture effect options. There is a scene mode available for almost any shooting scenario, including portrait, landscape, macro, sports action, sunset, night portrait, night view, and handheld twilight. When you recognize one of these environments, simply choose from the scene selection menu and the camera will optimize the necessary settings. Let's talk a little about each of these modes. First, there is the portrait mode. This will help you emphasize a subject by blurring the background. It also reproduces soft skin tones. Make sure you focus on the subject's eyes for the best results. Next is the sports action mode. This shoots fast motion at higher shutter speeds. If you hold down the shutter button, the camera will continue to take pictures one after another until you release the button. This mode works best with well-lit scenes, as insufficient light will not allow high shutter speeds. The next mode is the macro mode. This is great for close-ups of small subjects that are physically close to the lens. Use this to capture subjects such as flowers and food in clear, sharp focus. When shooting at distances of less than 9 inches, using a macro lens may be necessary. The landscape mode captures the entire range of scenery in sharp focus with vivid color. Shooting with your lens set to a wide angle will increase the sense of vastness of the scenery. You'll also want to make sure to keep the camera level when you're shooting landscape images. The sunset mode allows you to vividly and dramatically capture the warm colors of dusk and dawn. This mode is also great for capturing silhouettes. Shutter speeds may be slow in this mode, so you might consider using a tripod. The night view mode is great for capturing nighttime scenes without losing the dark atmosphere. In this mode, the shutter speed may be slow, and the use of a tripod will help to avoid blur due to camera shake. You'll also want to make sure the camera is level when you're photographing landscapes or similar scenes. The next mode is the handheld twilight mode. With this mode, you can take pictures at night without using a tripod and still get impressive results. Use this mode for stationary subjects or scenes. The handheld twilight mode takes a burst of shots and then combines the shots to create one image with reduced blur, camera shake, and noise. Keep the camera as still as possible during the continuous shooting. Please note that after the shots are taken, there will be a delay while the camera processes and combines the images. The last scene mode, Night Portrait, is great for capturing images of people in nighttime scenes. In this mode, the flash will fire to expose the subject and the shutter will remain open for a longer period of time to properly expose the background. In addition to the scene modes, your Sony a35 has picture effects, which are a great way to add creativity to your images. The picture effects are located under the same setting as the scene modes. Let's take a look at each of the picture effects now. The color posterization effect will give your images a high contrast, abstract look by emphasizing the primary colors. The black and white posterization effect will create the same look as the color posterization, but in black and white tones. The pop color picture effect will create a vivid look that emphasizes the colors in the image. Retro photo will make your images look aged with sepia color tones and faded contrast. There are also 4 different partial color picture effects for red, green, blue, and yellow. These picture effects create images that retain the respective color of the effect, but the other colors in the image are converted to black and white. The high key picture effect will create a look of an old photo with soft colors and reduced contrast. High contrast monochrome will create high contrast black and white images. The toy camera picture effect will mimic the look of a toy camera photo with shaded corners and pronounced colors. Keep in mind that picture effects will work for both still images and movie recording. Now that we've talked about the camera's scene modes and picture effects, let's discuss how to use the sweep panorama shooting modes. First, simply rotate the mode dial to the sweep shooting icon. Now the camera will prompt you to take the shot. Hold the camera steady and press the shutter halfway down to focus and get exposure, and then press it all the way down as you slowly move the camera in the direction of the arrow. And you'll notice that the camera takes several high-speed shots. In this mode, it's important to make sure you follow the direction of the arrow and move the camera in a smooth, consistent speed. Otherwise, the camera will be unable to shoot the panorama and will prompt you with an error message. The camera will seamlessly stitch all of the images together to create a single panoramic image. Note that it will take the camera a few moments to process the image. In addition to the sweep panorama settings, the A35 also has a 3D sweep panorama setting. Images shot with this setting can be viewed on a compatible 3D television. To switch the camera to this setting, make sure that the mode dial is set to the sweep shooting mode. Then press the function button and select the sweep shooting option. Here you can simply rotate the control dial to select the 3D sweep panorama setting. Taking pictures in this mode is the same as taking pictures in the standard sweep panorama mode. There are a few more things we should discuss about the sweep shooting modes: the panorama image size and the panorama direction. These settings are customizable for both the sweep panorama and the 3D sweep panorama modes. To make adjustments to these settings, again, make sure that the mode dial is set to the sweep shooting mode and then press the menu button. Here, use the control buttons to navigate to the second recording menu. The first item in this menu gives you the option to change the panorama size. You can select standard or wide. If you're using the 3D panorama setting, you will also have the option of 16:9. The next menu item is the panorama direction. This is the setting that controls the direction of the arrow when shooting a panorama. You can choose from right, left, up, or down. In 3D panorama, you'll only have the left and right options. Now let's take a minute to talk about the A35's Telezoom Continuous Advanced Priority Mode. With this mode, you'll have the ability to capture very fast-moving subjects with amazingly crisp focus. The Telezoom Continuous Advanced Priority Mode can capture images at up to 7 frames per second. To operate the camera in this mode, rotate the mode dial to Telezoom Continuous Advanced Priority icon. Now, all you need to do is press the shutter halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. The camera will continue to take pictures as long as the shutter button is held down. To make sure that the focus will be adjusted during shooting, you'll want to make sure that the focus mode is set to continuous. To do this, simply press the function button and navigate to the autofocus mode. Rotate the control dial to select continuous AF. One of the most important concepts in photography is exposure, or the amount of light that falls on the camera's image sensor or film. A properly exposed photo will have good detail in the shadow, midtone, and highlight areas. Photos that are too bright are overexposed, and photos that are too dark are underexposed. There are 3 ways that your A35 measures light. These are the camera's metering modes. Note that the metering modes are available only in certain shooting modes. To access the camera's metering modes, make sure that the mode dial is set to PASM, telezoom, or sweep shooting. Now we'll simply press the function button and use the control button to navigate to the metering mode option. The first metering mode is called multi-segment metering. This is an all-around metering mode suited for portraits and even backlit subjects. The camera sets the exposure automatically to suit the scene. This is a good mode to use for many situations, but sometimes when the scene is very bright or very dark, you'll want to use a different metering mode. The center weighted metering mode is weighted at the center and then averaged for the entire scene. The last mode is spot metering. This mode is effective when the background is much brighter than the subject due to backlighting. Spot metering covers only the area in the spot metering circle at the center of the frame. Now that we've talked about the camera's basic shooting modes, let's talk more about the advanced shooting modes. Note that we'll learn about these modes, but we won't spend very much time discussing basic photography concepts. If you'd like to learn more about how to use the camera's advanced modes to take amazing photos, you may benefit from QuickPro's Fundamentals series, which covers important elements of photography, including exposure, basic lighting, and composition. These modes allow you to take the most creative control over your camera's settings, like aperture, shutter speed, ISO, white balance, flash, as well as a variety of other settings. The first mode we'll discuss is called Program Auto and is represented with a P on the mode dial. In this mode, the camera automatically adjusts shutter speed and aperture for optimal exposure. This may seem similar to the auto modes, but with the programmed auto mode, you have control over the camera's aperture, shutter speed, focus mode, drive mode, and built-in flash settings. To operate in this mode, rotate the mode dial to P. You can monitor exposure settings like the aperture and shutter speed at the bottom of the LCD or viewfinder. Taking a picture in this mode is easy. Simply hold the shutter halfway down to focus, then press the shutter all the way down to take the picture. You may find that the image is too bright or too dark for your liking. To adjust the exposure compensation, press and hold the exposure compensation button while rotating the control dial. Values with a minus sign will make the image darker, and values with a plus sign will make the image brighter. The next setting on the mode dial is the A, or Aperture Priority Mode. The Aperture Priority Mode is useful for times when you want to control the depth of field in an image. Depth of field is the term used to describe the distance between the nearest and farthest objects in a scene that appear acceptably sharp in an image. When only a small area or subject in an image is in focus, it is said to have a shallow depth of field. This effect is achieved by using a smaller f-stop number. When everything in both the foreground and the background is in focus, an image is said to have a long depth of field. For a long depth of field, choose a large f-stop number. When you're shooting in aperture priority mode, you will set the aperture and the camera will automatically select the correct shutter speed for proper exposure. Select this mode when you want to create a long or short depth of field. To use this mode, set the mode dial to A and rotate the control dial to select an aperture value as you watch the display on the LCD or in the viewfinder. Once you have made your selection, press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. The next setting on the mode dial is the S, or Shutter Priority Mode. The shutter priority mode is useful for times when you want to control motion in a scene, whether it's freezing action or blurring a moving subject. In this mode, you'll set the shutter speed and the camera will automatically select the appropriate aperture value for proper exposure. To use the camera in shutter priority mode, set the mode dial to S and rotate the control dial to set the shutter speed. The Sony a35 has shutter speeds that range from very slow, 30 full seconds, to very fast, 1/4000th of a second. You can view the shutter speed and aperture values on the LCD or viewfinder. The next advanced shooting mode is manual, or M mode. This mode gives you complete control of the camera. In manual mode, you will set both the shutter speed and aperture to create the exposure. To operate the camera in manual mode, rotate the mode dial to M. To set the shutter speed, rotate the control dial. To set the aperture, press and hold the aperture button while rotating the control dial. As you're making adjustments to the aperture and shutter speeds, watch the exposure scale either on the LCD or through the viewfinder. When the exposure level indicator is near the center of the scale, the image will be properly exposed. You can choose just the right aperture and shutter speed combination for your scene, whether you want to freeze action or create a very shallow depth of field. Make the necessary adjustments to the aperture and shutter speeds so that the exposure level indicator is near the center of the scale. Then press the shutter button halfway down to focus and the rest of the way down to take the picture. In addition to aperture and shutter speed, the camera's ISO setting will have a significant impact on whether your images are properly exposed. The ISO setting affects the image sensor's sensitivity to light. The higher the number, the less light that is required to properly expose the image sensor. You can either have the camera automatically choose the sensitivity or you can set it manually. Here's how to set the ISO on the A35. Press the ISO button, the bottom of the control button, to bring up the ISO speed options on the camera's LCD monitor. Use the control button or the control dial to select the ISO setting you'd like. In the standard ISO settings options, you can choose from ISOs ranging from 100 to 12800. It's a good idea to set the ISO speed to suit the ambient light setting that you're shooting in. When you increase the ISO speed, a higher number, for low light, a fast shutter speed can be used to avoid blurry images. Keep in mind that a higher ISO setting may introduce noise or grain into your images. An ISO setting that is too high for the shooting conditions will make the image lose quality, and you might start to see particles in your picture. To help keep digital noise to a minimum, the Sony a35 has an impressive multi-frame noise reduction ISO option. To choose the ISO setting within multi-frame noise reduction, press the ISO button to view the ISO options. Scroll to the multi-frame noise reduction option and simply use the sides of the control button to select the ISO setting. When this option is used, the camera will take several shots at very high speed and combine them for a final image with significantly reduced noise. Experiment with ISO settings to become more familiar with their range and control. Here's a guide that will help you have a basic idea of what ISO settings to use in various situations. When you're outdoors in full sun, use ISO 100 to 200. In the shade on an overcast day or indoors with lots of window light, use ISO 400. ISOs 800 and higher should be used indoors for action shots or in other low light conditions. The A35 is equipped with Sony's translucent mirror technology, which allows the camera to offer full-time live view with incredible focusing speed and accuracy. Let's take a few moments to learn more about the options that are displayed on the camera's LCD. Note that these settings may vary depending on the shooting mode that you've selected. In the graphic display, which is also the default screen, several important shooting settings are displayed on the bottom of the screen. First, the shutter speed and aperture are displayed. Next, there is the exposure value scale. Above that, you'll find the aperture indicator and the shutter speed indicator. The aperture and shutter speed indicators provide a visual guide to help you remember which aperture values and shutter speeds will provide specific results. At the top left corner of the screen, the shooting mode will be displayed. Next, you'll see the memory card indicator with the number of shots remaining. Next, the image size, image quality, and movie image size are displayed. At the top right corner of the display, you'll see the battery remaining icon as well as the percentage. To view the recording information display, simply press the display button, and to minimize the information that is displayed, press the display button again to see the recording information off view. Your A35 is also capable of shooting high-quality HD video. When you record movies with your A35, you have the same control over depth of field and overall exposure as you would when you're shooting still images. Also note that you can record movies in any of the camera's shooting modes. When you're using a scene mode or picture effect, the characteristics of those settings will be applied to your movie. You can make adjustments to many of the camera's settings prior to recording a movie. Here are the specific shooting settings that you can make adjustments to for both still picture taking and movie recording: white balance, creative style, exposure compensation, autofocus area, metering mode, and picture effect. It's helpful to understand a little about movie resolution and movie file formats before you start shooting movies. There are two different movie recording formats to choose from: AVCHD and MP4. The AVCHD format records movies in full HD resolution, 1920 by 1080. You'll want to choose this format to record the highest resolution movies possible with your camera. AVCHD is an advanced video format ideal for archiving your video and burning to optical discs. You can burn AVCHD to a DVD in the AVCHD format or to a Blu-ray disc, both playable in full HD on a Blu-ray player. The other file format, MP4, is a good format to choose if you're going to be using the movie files for posting online or viewing on your computer. Recording a movie with this camera is easy. Simply press the shutter halfway down to focus, then press the movie record button to begin recording, and press it again to stop recording. To refocus during movie recording, you can either press the shutter button halfway down again, or you can press the AF button. When shooting movies, use an SD Speed Class 6 memory card or higher. If a slower memory card is used, the movie may not be properly recorded. To view a movie that you've recorded, press the Playback button. Then press the thumbnail zoom out button. Image files and movie files are located in separate tabs within the Playback view, so you'll need to select the Movie tab. Here you can scroll to the movie you'd like to play, press the center control button to select it, then press the center control button again to play the movie on the LCD. There are a few additional things that you should know about recording movies with your A35. First, you can adjust the exposure compensation while the movie is recording. This is done in the same way as in still image shooting. Simply press and hold the exposure compensation button and rotate the control dial. Numbers with a minus sign will produce a darker image, and numbers with a plus sign will produce a brighter image. Also, when the autofocus mode is set to local, you can change the focus area during movie recording. We'll discuss autofocus areas later in this guide. Finally, if you'd like to create depth of field in your movie files, you can make sure that the camera is set to either aperture priority or manual mode and select a small f-stop number. To record sound in movie mode, the A35 has a built-in microphone which will record sound automatically by default. Take care not to cover the microphone during movie recording. If you'd like to turn off sound recording, you can do this through the camera's menu system. In the first recording menu, navigate to Movie Audio Recording. Here you can select either on or off. After you've captured images and recorded movies with your Sony A35, you'll probably want to view them on the camera's large LCD. Let's take a look at the playback options for the A35. To enter playback, simply press the Playback button. The most recently recorded image or movie will be displayed on the LCD. You can use the sides of the control button to scroll through the image or movie files. To view additional files, press the Zoom Out thumbnail button. Still image files and movies are stored in separate tabs. Here you can press the left side of the control button to navigate to the Image Movie tabs to select the type of files you'd like to view. You can use the control button to scroll through the image thumbnails. To view an image full screen on the LCD, press the center control button. You can also magnify images on the LCD monitor. This is especially useful when you want to check for good focus in detail areas of the photo. Press the Zoom In button to see the desired level of detail in the photo. You can also press the Zoom Out button once or multiple times to view a larger area of the image. Then you can use the top, bottom, and sides of the control button to scroll to the desired area of the photo. As you're scrolling through photos in the camera's playback, you may find some images that you'd like to protect from being accidentally erased. To protect images, enter the camera's first playback menu and choose Protect. Here, choose Multiple Images. Now, all you need to do is scroll through the photos on the memory card. When you see an image that you'd like to protect, press the center control button, and the Protect icon will be displayed on the image. You can then continue scrolling through the images to select any others that you'd like to protect. You can then press the Playback button to return to the regular image playback. If you find a photo that didn't turn out, you can delete it from your memory card by pressing the Delete button. When the Delete dialog appears, select Delete and the image will be removed from the memory card. Note that once an image is erased, it cannot be recovered. Another feature that is available in the camera's image playback is image rotation. To enable image rotation, press the Function button. Now you can press the center control button to rotate the image. Each time the center control button is pressed, the image will rotate 90 degrees. Press the Playback button to resume normal playback. The A35 has different playback screens that will each display different information about the image. Pressing the Playback button will take you to the default playback, where many important settings are displayed. At the top left corner, you'll see the memory card and the still image folder icon. Next, there is the folder number and the file number. This shows the image size and quality. On the top right corner, you'll see the battery indicator. At the bottom of the screen, there is the date that the image was recorded, the time the image was recorded, and the file number out of the total number of images. Also at the bottom of the screen are shooting settings, including the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO settings. Pressing the display button will bring up the histogram display. Here you'll see the same information at the top and the bottom of the screen that was in the previous display. In addition to that information, you can see the shooting mode, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, exposure compensation, metering mode, focal length, creative style, white balance, and dynamic range optimizer setting. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the histograms for the whole image, the top histogram, as well as the histograms for each color channel. The histogram gives a basic idea of the tone distribution of an image. If the histogram is shifted to the left side of the graph, the image will probably be dark or underexposed. If the histogram is shifted to the right side of the graph, the image will be too bright or overexposed. In most cases, a properly exposed photo will have data distributed over the whole graph. The final playback screen can be shown by pressing the display button again. This view is simply a full screen image view. One of the most important principles for taking a great picture is image sharpness. Image sharpness is affected by several things, including lens focus, camera shake, depth of field, and digital noise. Let's first discuss the autofocus modes that are available on the A35. Autofocus modes are available only when the AF switches on the camera body and lens are set to the AF position. In the PASM and telezoom modes, you'll be able to change the camera's focus mode setting. The focus mode will be set for you automatically in the other shooting modes. To access the camera's focus modes, make sure that the shooting mode is set to PASM or telezoom. Then press the function button. Here you can use the control button to navigate to the autofocus mode options. You can rotate the control dial or press the center control button to make your selection. You can choose from AFS or single shot AF, AFA or automatic AF, and AFC or continuous AF. When you're choosing the focus mode, the main thing you'll want to think about is whether or not the subject is in motion. With all of the focus modes, you can focus by pressing the shutter button halfway down or by pressing the AF button. When focus is achieved, the AF point which achieved focus will flash in green, and the focus indicator will appear at the bottom left corner of the LCD. The first focus mode is AFS or single shot AF and is best suited for stationary subjects. Choose this mode when you're photographing objects or when you're doing portrait work with an older child or adult. The AFC or continuous AF mode is best for shooting moving subjects and is for use when the focusing distance keeps changing. Use this mode when you're photographing sporting events, small children, or animals. While you hold down the shutter button halfway, the subject will continuously be focused. In the AFA or automatic AF mode, the focus mode automatically switches from single shot AF to continuous AF if the subject starts moving. After the subject is focused in the single shot mode, if the subject starts moving, the camera will detect the movement and will change the AF mode automatically to continuous AF. In addition to the camera's autofocus modes, you'll also want to be familiar with the autofocus areas. The autofocus areas can be changed when the camera is set to the PASM, telezoom, or sweep shooting modes. To select an autofocus area, press the function button and navigate to the AF area setting. Rotate the control dial to make your selection. The first option is wide. In this mode, the camera will select which of the 15 AF points to use for focus. Next, there is spot. When this option is selected, the camera will exclusively use the center AF point for focus. The last option is local. With the local option, you can select the exact focus point you'd like the camera to use. To select a focus point, make sure the autofocus area is set to local and press the AF button. Now you can choose the AF point with either the control button or the control dial. When you've made your selection, press the shutter button halfway to resume picture taking. Your camera also has a manual focus option that can be used at times when it's difficult to get proper focus using autofocus methods. Another cause of poor focus is camera shake. This happens when the camera uses slow shutter speeds and moves while the shutter is open, exposing the image sensor. Always try to steady the camera. Holding it with two hands and pressing the viewfinder gently against your face will help. You can also lean against something or use a tripod, a monopod, or even a beanbag to steady the camera. In scenarios with stationary subjects, the handheld twilight mode in the camera's scene modes is a great option to minimize the effects of camera shake. You can also reduce the effect of camera shake by selecting a fast shutter speed. This reduces the amount of time the image sensor is exposed to shaky conditions. A helpful rule of thumb is to set your shutter speed to 1 over the focal length. Confusing? Let me explain. If the focal length of your lens is 300 millimeters, for example, you should set your shutter speed to at least 1/300th of a second. If the focal length is 30 millimeters, you might get by using a shutter speed as low as 1/30th of a second. Another cause of poor focus is digital grain, sometimes called noise. You can avoid noise by not enlarging an image too much. If you know that you must enlarge an image, select as large a file format as possible. If you're using high ISOs, you might try using the camera's multi-frame noise reduction ISO option. You can also keep out noise by photographing subjects that have good contrast. Finally, to reduce digital noise in your images, you can let your camera cool off for a moment before shooting more pictures after heavy use. An overheated image sensor will add noise to your pictures. Let's take a look at the A35's sophisticated menu system. Depending on what shooting mode you're using, different menu items will appear. For our purposes in this guide, we'll be showing you the menu options that are available in the camera's manual mode. Many of these settings are discussed in greater detail in other chapters of this guide. We'll just look at an overview of the menu items in this chapter. The menu system is accessed by pressing the menu button. The first menu is the recording menu, indicated by the camera icon. It has 3 submenus, indicated by the numbers to the right of the icon. In the first recording menu, the first item is image size, followed by image aspect ratio. You can change the aspect ratio to either 3:2 or 16:9. If you're planning on making standard 4:6 prints of your images, you'll want to keep the aspect ratio at 3:2. Next, there are the image quality, movie file format, movie size, and movie audio recording options. The last menu item is the steady shot option. Sony Steady Shot can reduce the effect of camera shake in images with slow shutter speeds. Here you can choose whether you'd like the steady shot to be on or off. The second recording menu begins with the menu items for the panorama modes. These menu items are available only when the camera is set to the sweep shooting mode. The next menu item is flash control. Here you can choose the method for determining the intensity of the flash output. The ADI flash option provides accurate flash compensation with virtually no effect from the reflection off of subjects. The pre-flash TTL method uses data only from pre-flash metering to determine the amount of light to output. The next menu item is AF Illuminator, which can be set to auto or off. When it's set to auto, the AF Illuminator will provide light for a dimly lit subject to aid focusing. The last menu item is the color space setting, with 2 options, sRGB and Adobe RGB. Some photographers prefer the sRGB mode as it requires less processing later. Other photographers prefer the Adobe RGB mode as this mode has a wider range of colors, making it a preferred option for images that will be extensively processed on the computer. The last recording menu has 3 menu items. First, the long exposure noise reduction option, which determines the noise reduction for shots with very slow shutter speeds. The second menu item is high ISO noise reduction, which will determine the level of noise reduction for images shot with high ISO settings. The last menu item allows you to change the function of the D-range button. Now let's take a look at the custom menu, which includes 2 sub-menus. The first item in the first menu is the iStart AF, which sets whether or not to use the autofocus when you look through the viewfinder. Next, there is the Finder LCD setting, which determines the method for switching between the viewfinder and LCD. The AEL button setting determines how the AE lock button will lock the exposure during shooting. The focus hold button option lets you choose whether to have the button provide a focus hold or a depth of field preview. When enabled, the focus magnifier assigns the delete button to functions of the focus magnifier feature. When enabled, the red eye reduction feature will reduce the appearance of red eyes in images of people or animals when the flash is used. The release without lens option sets whether the shutter can open without a lens attached. The second custom menu begins with the grid line setting, which allows you to select the type of composition grid that can be displayed over the image while shooting. You can choose from the rule of thirds, square, or diagonal plus square. You can also choose to have the grid disabled. The next menu item determines whether or not the histogram is displayed during the shooting. The Sets Display in Finder and Display Recording Data menu items determine the way the information is shown in the viewfinder and on the LCD. The Auto Review setting allows you to choose how long you'd like images to be automatically displayed on the LCD after taken. The last two menu items are available only in the Auto Plus mode and determine settings related to continuous shooting in that mode. Now let's take a look at the playback menus. The first menu item is Delete, which allows you to delete multiple images at once or all images in a specific folder. The Still Movie Select option allows you to choose whether still images or movie files are displayed in playback. The Slideshow option will play a slideshow of the images on the memory card. The Image Index option will allow you to choose whether you'd like to view 6 or 12 image thumbnails. The 3D viewing option is available only with images taken using the camera's 3D shooting mode when a compatible 3D television is connected to the camera. The Protect menu item allows you to protect images from accidental deletion, and the Specify Printing option allows you to choose the way that images are printed when the camera is connected to a compatible printer. The second playback menu begins with the Volume Settings menu option, which allows you to choose the volume setting for movie playback. Next, there is the Select Folder menu item, which allows you to choose which folder to have playback show images from. The Playback Display option determines whether vertical images will be rotated on the LCD during playback. Now let's take a look at the Memory Card Tool menu. The first menu item allows you to format the memory card. Next, you can choose the way that the camera assigns file numbers to the image and movie files. The folder name will allow you to choose the folder format, and the Select Recording folder allows you to change the folder where recorded images are stored on the memory card. With the New Folder option, you can create a new folder to store images and movies on the memory card. The Recover Image DB setting will recover the image database file for movies and still images to enable recording and playback. The last menu item in the Memory Card Tool menu is Display Card Space setting. This option shows you how many images and how many minutes of movie can be recorded with the current settings and the space available on the memory card. The Clock Setup menu is next. There are two menu items here, Date Time Setup and Area Setting. To set the date and time, press the center control button and use the top and bottom of the control button to adjust settings. Use the sides of the control button to navigate between each section, and press the center control button to confirm the settings. The Area Setting will allow you to choose the time zone. The final menu is the Setup menu, with three submenus. The first two menu items allow you to choose the brightness for both the LCD and the viewfinder. The Power Save options determine how long the camera should wait before going into Power Save mode. Control for HDMI will allow you to operate the camera from a TV using an HDMI cable. Language will allow you to set the language for the menu and other displays. And the Help Guide display determines whether the Help Guide will be displayed to explain camera functions. The second setup menu begins with the USB connection setting, which determines how a computer will recognize the camera when it's connected. Next is the Audio Signals setting, which determines whether or not the beep sound is used when focus is achieved or when the self-timer is working. The Cleaning mode will allow you to clean the image sensor. The Version menu item displays which version of camera software is installed, and the Demo mode sets the demo playback to on or off. The Menu Start option determines which menu item will be displayed, whether it is the top menu item or the menu item that was previously selected. The last setup menu has only one menu item, Reset Default. This option will allow you to reset the camera to its factory default settings. Let's discuss white balance. It's important to understand that the quality of your pictures is affected by the color of the surrounding light and how the camera's electronics process that light. Compensating for varying light conditions is referred to as setting the white balance. Most light looks white to an untrained eye, but it can be composed of a range of different colors. The color of sunlight is different in daylight, in the shade, or in cloudy conditions. Daylight, for example, is fairly blue, and fluorescent light is fairly green. If your camera is set to shoot in daylight, but you're shooting in a setting with fluorescent light, your image will look overly red. Proper camera white balance takes into account the color temperature of a light source, which refers to the relative warmth or coolness of white light. Human eyes are very good at judging what is white under different light sources. However, digital cameras often have great difficulty determining auto white balance, or AWB. Incorrect white balance can create unattractive blue, orange, or even green colors in your photos. The white balance scale is expressed in measurements of Kelvin. The higher color temperatures, measured in the area of 5600 Kelvin to 7500 Kelvin, represent situations like a sunlit or cloudy day. These shooting situations have a greater amount of blue tones and a lesser amount of red tones. Lower color temperature situations are measured in the area of 3200 Kelvin down to 1900 Kelvin, and they're found in lighting situations like standard lighting from a tungsten light bulb or candlelight. These types of shooting situations are found on the lower end of the spectrum and produce greater amounts of red tones and a lesser amount of blue tones. Once you get acquainted with the camera's preset white balance settings, you can try setting your own by using the camera's custom white balance feature. To use this tool effectively, you'll want to be familiar with the color temperature that is most effective for your shooting situation. Again, most light looks white to an untrained eye. Setting your white balance will help your pictures have a proper coloring. If natural-looking colors cannot be obtained with auto white balance, you can set the white balance manually to suit the respective light source. In the automatic modes, the white balance is set automatically. To access the white balance settings, press the white balance button. Here you can choose the white balance setting that will be best for your shooting scenario. A benefit of the A35 is that it allows for fine-tuning of white balance within each white balance setting. Your camera will attempt to automatically determine the white balance when it's set to the auto white balance mode. This is the default setting, but you can get better results by setting a preset white balance or by manually customizing the white balance. The next white balance setting is daylight. Daylight is a great setting for taking pictures in the sunlight. This setting is marked with a sun icon. Use the shade setting when you're taking pictures in the shade. It reduces the bluish tones in a picture. This setting is marked by an icon of a house with shade. Use the cloudy setting when you're taking pictures on days that are overcast. This is marked with a cloud icon. The tungsten light setting is used when taking pictures under common light bulbs. It reduces the reddish tones in a picture. This setting is marked with a light bulb icon. The fluorescent light setting is great for taking pictures under fluorescent lighting. The next setting is the flash setting. Use this setting when using the built-in or an external flash unit. The color temperature setting will allow you to select the specific color temperature of the light that you're shooting under. The color filter setting will allow you to create the same effect as color compensation filters used in film photography. Use this setting in conjunction with the color temperature setting. You can compensate up to 9 levels of either green or magenta. The next icon is the custom white balance option. Use this setting when you want to manually set the white balance for a specific light source for better accuracy. This is done by taking a picture of a white card or object and then selecting the image for the camera's electronics to reference. An 18% gray card, which can be purchased at your local camera store, will give you the most accurate results. You can also use a white card, an object like a shirt, or a piece of paper to achieve similar results. Press the white balance button and navigate to the custom white balance option. Press the right side of the control button to select the custom white balance setup option. Then press the center control button. Make sure the white or gray object fills the frame and press the shutter button to take the white balance reading. In addition to the white balance, there are two other features on your A35 that can improve the quality of your images: creative styles and dynamic range optimization. Creative styles are an intuitive way for you to tell the camera what levels of sharpness, contrast, saturation, and color tone you'd like for your specific shooting scenario. The camera has 6 different preset creative styles, and you can make adjustments to settings in each of them. To access the creative styles, press the function button and use the control button to navigate to the creative style option. Press the center control button to view the settings. First, there is the standard creative style. This is a good general use picture style. The camera will automatically adjust color tone to fit the scene that you're photographing. Images taken with this creative style will appear sharp, vivid, and crisp. The vivid creative style will record images with great saturation and sharpening. Use this creative style for striking images of flowers, greenery, and ocean views. The portrait picture style is great for portraits, particularly close-ups. It offers pleasant skin tones and makes the image appear a little softer. The landscape picture style is good for taking pictures of scenery outdoors. This picture style makes the greens and the blues in the image more vivid. The sunset creative style beautifully captures the red tones of the setting sun. The black and white creative style will capture images with smooth black and white gradation. Images taken with this setting cannot be converted to color later. All of these creative styles are fully customizable. You can make changes to the contrast, saturation, and sharpness. We'll select one that we'd like to edit and simply press the right side of the control button to view the options. To adjust one of the parameters, use the control button to scroll to that setting. Then press the top or bottom of the control button to make the adjustments. When you're finished, press the center control button to resume picture taking. As you're out taking pictures, you'll probably run into some challenging lighting situations, like when your subject is backlit, causing a wide range of shadow to highlight. Your A35 has 2 great features that will help you retain amazing shadow and highlight details, even in backlight or high contrast lighting: Auto HDR and DRO, or Dynamic Range Optimizer. Let's take a minute to learn about both of these camera features, starting with Auto HDR. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. It's a technique that is used in photography to create captivating photos of dramatically lit subjects. The HDR effect is created when 3 different exposed images are combined to create a single photo that shows a super realistic range of shadows and highlights. Here is how to configure the camera to use the Auto HDR setting. First, make sure that the shooting mode is set to PASRM. Also note that the ISO setting cannot be set to the multi-frame noise reduction option. Now press the D-range button and use the control button to select Auto HDR. Press the sides of the control button to adjust the level of variation that you'd like in the exposure between the shots that will be used to create the HDR image. Now simply take the picture. The camera will take 3 shots, and after the images are combined, 2 images will be recorded on the camera's memory card: the image with the correct exposure and the final HDR image. Now let's talk about the Dynamic Range Optimizer, or DRO. This setting is similar to the Auto HDR, as it helps you to capture rich, natural shadow and highlight details in high contrast lighting, but it differs from Auto HDR in that it captures just one image, so it can be used with moving subjects and can even be used with continuous shooting. The DRO setting is available when the camera's shoot mode is set to PASM or telezoom modes, and it is accessed under the same function options as Auto HDR. Again, just press the D-range button, then scroll to the DRO option. Again, you can use the sides of the control button to adjust the level of optimization you'd like. The higher the number, the more shadows and highlights will be recovered in an image. Now simply take the picture. Let's talk a little about choosing the right lens for your photography. Sony lenses are available in a wide range of focal lengths, each with its own benefits and uses. The focal length on a lens is the second series of numbers on a lens barrel, and it's measured in millimeters. This lens, for instance, is an 18 to 55 millimeter lens, or the focal length range is from 18 millimeters to 55 millimeters. Lenses that have a range of focal lengths like this 18 to 55 are zoom lenses. Zoom lenses have the ability to get closer or farther away from the subject without ever actually moving the camera. Lenses that have only one focal length are prime lenses. Prime lenses do not have zooming capability, but many professional photographers prefer them, particularly for portraits, because of the great clarity they offer. With this understanding of focal lengths in millimeters, we can discuss some of the different ranges of focal lengths, as well as the lens categories that different focal lengths fall into. Lenses that are less than 50 millimeters are considered to be wide-angle lenses. So the 18 to 55 that we just talked about could fall into the wide-angle range because it goes down to 18 millimeters. Wide-angle lenses are great for landscape shots, as well as situations where space is limited and you want to include as much of a scene as possible. Mid-range lenses have between 50 and 85 millimeters. This range of focal lengths is great for family snapshots, portraits, and vacations. The 18 to 55 lens that came with this a35 also falls into the mid-range category. These lenses are also referred to as walk-around lenses because they're so versatile and can be used for a variety of subjects and shooting scenarios. Telephoto lenses are lenses with over 85 millimeters and are great for getting closer to your subjects. Sports and wildlife photographers use telephoto lenses extensively to zoom in on the subject. Telephoto lenses are also great for getting amazing close-up shots of flowers or other small objects. Your a35 has a powerful built-in flash that can provide you with extra light in certain shooting scenarios. The effective range of the built-in flash is between 3 and 30 feet, depending on the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. To use the built-in flash in the P, A, S, and M modes, simply press the flash button and the flash will pop up. In the automatic and scene modes, the built-in flash will pop up and fire automatically in low light or backlight conditions. Note that the flash will not fire in some shooting modes, and that some flash modes are available only in certain shooting modes. To access the flash modes, press the function button and use the control button to navigate to the flash options. Here you can use the control dial to scroll through the flash mode options and select the one you'd like. There are 5 different flash modes. Let's talk about each of them now. First, there is the flash off mode. When this mode is selected, the flash will not fire even if the flash is raised. Use the flash off mode when you do not want the flash to fire, regardless of lighting. The next flash mode is the auto flash mode. With this mode, the camera will automatically evaluate the lighting conditions and fire to provide the correct amount of light. The fill flash mode will fire every time a picture is taken, regardless of lighting. Use this for situations when there is plenty of light, but you'd like the subject to be lit with a flash. Next is the slow sync flash mode. This is a good mode to use when you're photographing a subject at night and you'd like both the background and the subject to be properly exposed. The last flash mode is the rear sync flash mode. In rear sync, the flash fires just before the shutter closes, creating a trailing image of the movement of the subject. If the image is too bright or too dark, you can use flash exposure compensation to make adjustments. To set the flash exposure compensation, press the function button and navigate to the flash compensation. Use the control dial to adjust the level of flash compensation you'd like. Numbers with a plus sign will increase the level of the flash, and numbers with minus signs will decrease the level of the flash. Now simply take the picture. To review, let's go through some examples of these situations to manually apply the principles learned in this guide. First, let's approach a portrait situation. It's always smart to first preset the white balance to match the current lighting. Use the preset or custom white balance. To make the subject the focal point, position the subject in the frame in a way that will draw more attention to the subject. You can achieve this by using the rule of thirds. Make sure the focus point is correct. Another great way to give focus to the subject is by blurring the background. This effect is achieved by opening the aperture. Remember, the smaller the f number, the larger the aperture opening. After the aperture is set, adjust the shutter speed to achieve a proper exposure. By opening the aperture more, you create a shallow depth of field. This will allow your focus point to be in sharp focus, while the background will have a soft focus. The next common situation is a landscape. You will usually want the whole landscape to be in sharp focus. To achieve this, the aperture will need to be set for a very narrow opening. Remember, the larger the f number, the smaller the depth of field. A small opening creates a very long depth of field. This mode will give you a sharp focus in both the foreground and the background. Then adjust the shutter speed to achieve a proper exposure. In this setting, the shutter speed can get pretty slow, so be sure to steady your camera or use a tripod to avoid camera shake. When taking pictures at a sporting event or shooting subjects with a lot of motion, it's a good idea to prepare your camera before the action begins. First, you'll need to choose the shooting mode. With the A35, you could choose Telezoom Continuous Advanced Priority, Shutter Priority, or Manual mode. First, preset your white balance. Next, set the focus mode to continuous so that the camera will be constantly focusing on the moving subject. Now, if applicable, set your camera's drive mode to continuous so when the action happens, you only need to hold the button down. Now position yourself to have the best angle for the action. If you want your subject to be in sharp focus, turn your ISO up around 400 to 1600. Next, adjust your shutter speed to 1/500th of a second or faster. Then adjust your aperture for a proper exposure. Take a couple of practice shots to fine-tune. Now you're ready for action. If you want to show a little blur to add aesthetic effect, slightly slow the shutter speed. We hope you have enjoyed learning more about your Sony a35. We know this new information will give you enough confidence and know-how to take your photography skills to new levels. Remember, you can refer back to any section of this guide at any time. Just select the topics you want to review from the main menu or table of contents. Watch for more QuickPro guides on using newly released cameras. Thanks for watching.